Yo. It takes me so long to have to like sit there, psych myself into all the process I got to do to put these things together, especially handling how I'm trying to fucking cover Iranian contextuality because instead of just giving you like some live stream play by play of the Boom Shakalaka, I'd rather build the fucking case that the Iranian people are worth fighting for. I'm not fighting for Israel. Israel, you should be effing fine. Just stay behind America. Stay behind America. Shut up. Defend yourself. Hit the flank like whatever your goddamn private agreement is with America. And let our nation handle it with hopefully some fucking influence from me. I know the absurdity that sounds like. But then again, I magically got Roger Stone once. So I've just not been in the mood for Roger Stone level people. So I've not been getting other people or asking for Roger Stone back. But the point is that I can get Roger Stone once. Not saying I could even do that again. We're a world of free will anyway. It doesn't fucking matter. Second I say the name, I may botch it. Point is, I could get all sorts of people. But at any rate, I want to kick things off. Oh, and by the way, that was, of course, another Iranian metal band called Chaos Descent, The Apathetic Age. And I liked the title because I believe that two to three generations of apathy of what we handled poorly in defense of ourselves for our interest in protecting the Shah because we were interested in protecting Iran as an ally. Honestly, look, exoterically, that is exactly what we were doing. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing unethical about that. And then you have an on-the-books relationship between your intelligence agencies, including, yes, fucking Mossad. Now, back then, America was more strictly Zionist. Even if you weren't a Zionist, you just kind of understood, you believed the basics, and that it doesn't make rational sense to you that people in Palestine would be provocative. Right? Or whatnot, right? And unfortunately, we are dealing with certain issues where certain people are just not the same. Certain, especially if your belief system has a relationship to a different economic system, you're already asking for trouble, right? Because there's a lot of things that Iran was convinced it wanted in 1979. And by the late 80s, they were suffering because they knew how to slide it all right in. And today, I'm going to make the argument that that Savak was not a malevolent organization at the whims of a dictator. I mean, it was at the whims of an emperor, of a king, right? It was of a sovereign. Yes. However, everybody leaves it at that. And I've noticed that everything in the reporting of its time was left to a wild imagination, and nothing in 47 years of hindsight in a world eager to side with Iran can produce a reality in which they can prove that the Shah did anything wrong. Other than doing what a king does who has a peasant class, right? And the entire Iranian Revolution is another kind of it might be, I have to get a better idea of what the economy of Iran is. I'll probably ask that while we're doing it, because we're going to watch a couple of clips and I'm going to read a couple of things. And long story short is that the Savak was just everybody's secretly, like we have the Secret Service here in the United States, so on and so forth, right? And where the Secret Service fails us, we have Hillary Clinton. Anyway. Modern American mythology. At the very least, if it's not true, at the very least, it is modern American mythology between good and bad things. And it corresponds with Norse mythology because people seem to go to the swamp of Washington, D.C. to create monsters in the world. Love how that works. Okay. So, let me see here. So I want to start things off commenting on, I've got a video from, it's about a 15-minute video that's kind of do your basic overview of the history of Iran leading up to the 79 revolution. And it's talking about how Iran changed forever, right? So the point is to see how this is framing what the world of Iran looked like on the other side, right? So that's a part of it. And because the MOIS is what is in question here, right? And I think that if you are trying to win the hearts and minds of liberals over to at least finding peaceful ideas for your liberation, but the point is looking for your liberation, you know, which is difficult because you have to accept that those are intolerant people and are exactly like what you are afraid Donald Trump is, who appeals to the fundamentalist Christian and thus has to accept all the baggage of narrative hatred of that, which makes it also very hard to know what is real or unreal about things such as how guilty he is for anything in association with the Epstein files, for instance, right? And so we're also never going to have a president that people can say, well, nobody seems to have a conspiracy theory about this guy that he's going to betray us on this issue, so I think it's okay that we're at war. No, that's never going to happen. There's always some connective tissue, right? Oh, Donald Trump had that meeting with Kissinger, right? Like, there's going to be some sort of connective tissue, and it's going to ruin everything because we don't live in this world that can, like, unfortunately, there's still aspects of the representative government and the effect of the things of the meritocratic system and the faith that the people put in persons and institutions that are a factor regardless of whether you want your president to be aligned with them or not. They have to fucking talk to them, and they have to have a fucking civil diplomatic disposition in order to get somewhere. Anyway, so we're going to go with this. We're going to go properties. There we go. All right, so we're going to go with this one, and I am going to try and bring up points because it's going to do what these videos do in their framing mechanisms. I gave it a little bit of a screening, right? So I would not say that the people that made this are people that think that, I think that they believe that the Shah was a bad man. You know, like, people have their ridiculous, horrendous reasons why they got these principal problems. So fair use. Here we go.
In 1953, the CIA and MI6 overthrew Iran's elected prime minister to keep the Shah on his throne. 26 years later, that throne was gone, replaced by a theocracy backed by 98% of voters. The 1979 revolution didn't just change Iran forever, it erased a monarchy and built something the West never saw coming. And it all traces back to the very coup that was supposed to prevent it. August 1953 reshaped Iran's future in a single week. Tanks rolled through Tehran as Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh, once celebrated for nationalizing Iran's oil, was forced from office by a secret Anglo-American operation.
Now,
the Shah, who had...
As someone who believes in nationalism, thing is that I'm not sure that you want to, so to speak, nationalize your resource. You want it to be part. You want to have a private enterprise run it within your nation, and then you just want to be able to keep an eye on the environment and the reserves, and also protect it under military interest ideas. And you might want to have some employment regulatories because you want to make sure that you don't have some spy trying to sabotage our energy market, yada, 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 but you let the private sector do it, right? But the idea that the oil is for the nation, right? That's a different story. Now,
had briefly fled the country, returned almost immediately. American military aid arrived within days.
Now, there's like we can continue also to dig back in history, right? Because Mossadegh, 1953, is considered like the beginning of the end, right? Listen, time marches on. I'm not saying it was a wrong move that they abandon a monarchy per se, right? But then again, they could have quote abandoned a monarchy in a uncorrupt version of what's going on in England, right? That's an idea, right? It's not like there aren't European countries, like Denmark still has a fucking no, is it Denmark? I think Denmark still has a king. The Netherlands still has a king. I was talking to Stein about that, right? But anyway,
fighter jets, advisors, and cash set the tone for the new order. British oil experts reclaimed their posts in the refineries, while U.S. technical teams settled into government ministries. Details of the coup, including false royal decrees, paid street mobs, and clandestine radio broadcasts, leaked into public conversation within a few years. By the late 1950s, newspapers in Tehran were already calling Mossadegh's fall a foreign engineered affair.
Now, also here's another thing for perspective. If we're talking about they're kind of at their place in civilizational development, and the Shah is the one interested in getting them up on civilizational development. Granted, Mossadegh, at least when nationalizing the oil, yeah, sure, that too, right? Because another reason you want to have the oil nationalized like that is that very easily, if their government were to transition to the Soviet Union, this is part of the context, that it would be an easy transition to seizing the means of oil production. Right? So there's an idea like this. Look, I'm going to defend fucking America. I'm going to defend the fucking free market. I'm not going to use the word capitalism because it's actually a communist vernacular. But in our free market, which we need to fucking like try to fucking reconfigure into something that is doing, oh my God, right? Everybody hates the trickle down thing, right? I don't know, oh, trickle down, that false thing, whatever, right? But yeah, but like we don't want to talk about inflation, right? Part of inflation is gas prices. Part of gas prices is all of this.
That memory would not fade. For many Iranians, the Shah's throne now rested on foreign power, not popular will. Opposition pamphlets and underground radio broadcasts in the 1960s and the 1970s drew a direct line from Operation Ajax to every new American loan and British oil contract.
And you saw right there the hammer and the frickin' sickle, or pretty much, yeah. In this thing over here, right? Yeah, it's the hammer and the sickle, right? So this is like, like this is a religious community, like People been trying to tell you about that for a fucking hot minute, right? And if you fucking are a person that's gonna believe that the state exists, then you're gonna have to really reconsider things like absolute peace, because that's what I've been doing.
Contract. The monarchy's legitimacy, once rooted in ancient dynastic claims, became tangled with the image of a regime propped up by outsiders. As the Shah's modernization drive accelerated, the legacy of 1953 cast a long shadow. Bazaar merchants, religious leaders, and leftist intellectuals each found in the coup a symbol of betrayal. Khomeini's sermons, copied onto thousands of cassette tapes and smuggled across borders, invoked Mossadegh by name and called the Shah a servant of the Americans. Even exiled activists in Los Angeles printed declassified CIA cables to rally support, while student groups in Tehran chanted slogans about lost sovereignty. The memory of foreign intervention became a rallying cry.
Now, all of these claims that were just made, right? Those are things that Iranians did say. That doesn't mean it's fucking reality. And America, especially for those that have been politically conscious, as well as those who have been socio-psychologically conscious, and I've been conscious of both of those things, of our world around us, our nation, and our neighbors, and our other psychically focused interests, you know that those are not the right words for what that is, but they need to use those words because that's part of what's acceptable rhetoric for a revolution. If you say your revolution is about something, you get support from people who got no idea. It's called a lie! They lied! They used the Quran and they lied! Why is that so fucking hard to understand? Donald Trump uses the Bible and he lies! And you don't fucking get it? And you think Donald Trump is worse than this schmuck?
Uniting groups that otherwise had little in common. Decades later, the wounds of 1953 helped fuel a powerful anti-Western current, making the monarchy's efforts at reform and modernization suspect in the eyes of millions. The monarchy's struggle to shake off the stain of foreign dependence would shape every attempt at change and set the stage for the revolution that followed. In January 1963, the Shah unveiled the White Revolution, a sweeping package of reforms designed to transform Iran's economy and society in record time. Land reform stood at the center. Over the next 5 years, nearly 1.8 million peasant families received small plots.
Now, criticism of the White Revolution is going to be heard in this. I want you to keep in mind that once again, although this is definitely their narrative that everybody has accepted as their, this is their bullet points of their revolution, right? These are bullet points of the revolution per se. This was what the people believed. And for the most part, this is just going off of that. It's not diving into whether it was real or not, right? So I'm giving certain little bits and pieces of very important context on top of that without trying to manipulate you. I'm trying to be very transparent about what I do in this. This is the importance of fair use reactions.
Breaking up the old estates of the landed elite. But the new farms were often too small to support a family, and many peasants lacked.
So did you hear that? Breaking up the old estates of the landed elite. So there was something going on where a certain higher class had land losses that were then given to peasants in an experiment for them to develop, right? A little bit of a social program, right? Because we're not talking about some sort of absolute libertarianism going on with this Shah over here, right? Where this is, he's being classically liberal. He's a non-12er Shiite, as I understand it, who is secular, loves America, loves the West, loves Israel, right? And, if you're not paying attention to what the globalists are doing, you can have one fucking way of looking at it versus another, right? And unfortunately, sometimes you just are made to feel guilty as a right-winger because you go down these paths and you see things that strengthen a right-winger's argument, right? And I'm trying not to do that, but if the right-winger is right about a thing, I can't help that because I'm serving the truth, right? And you're not necessarily going to want what I want. But can we find any level of baseline agreement between us? Because we haven't even gotten into the meat of this conversation, which is MOIS, right? Because as the tensions rise over these changes, it becomes about how Savak operates behind the scenes to keep those who are being coerced by the socialism and those being coerced by their pursuit of the Mahdi, right? Because religious fanaticism is a serious aspect of what they do. They're kind of living in a perpetual end times, just like the fundamentalists. And they're on a far less responsible hair trigger.
Lacked capital or access to credit. By 1975, the World Bank recorded a sharp increase in the Gini coefficient.
The Gini coefficient, yeah, I looked into this. We still use that today. The Gini coefficient is a weaponized statistic for communists. It's the graph that they shame the free market with. Look at the income inequality. You're looking at the income, but you're not looking at the wealth in the nation available to all, which is of the greatest benefit to the least of these. Because that wealth goes into things available to you. A certain amount of wealth goes into the availability of how well a nation's parks are taken care of, for instance, for us to enjoy in their groomed and purposed manner as a thoughtful thing that our society decided to build for itself. Unfucking believable. This is such early like Shaw derangement syndrome, Trump derangement syndrome. It's just part of we're really just talking about the part of a psyop that is meant to undermine the executive of the government, right? Whether that be a king, a prime minister, and a president, a religious figure like the Ayatollah, right? That's why you've got these religious types, or a psychological type, or you're going to wrap yourself around your narrative as your magic. You believe all my bullshit? I am a perfect golden child, right? So we're so smart that we don't believe Donald Trump is a saint, but we're so stupid that we believe the Ayatollah's a fucking saint? You psychopaths?
From 0.44 in 1965 to 0.49 a decade later, signaling a widening gap between rich and poor. Rural families...
Right, and then the question is, okay, and how bad do the poor have it? Right? That's statistic, but this is showing you where the world is turning against the Shah, and that narrative is out there in the world. People are harshly critical of him, and all of it's just on paper. All of it is basically saying, well, why don't you pick up our socialist policies? Why aren't you like Europe? Like, why aren't you giving into the Western conglomeration? All right? And, it's a real fucking crime that it's going down like that, because we didn't understand that somebody was using their dissatisfaction with the deal they're making with the West, who has an agenda with the issues of the Middle East, and undermining America in this respect, right? And if we're, like this, the White Revolution starts in 1963. Isn't that fucking crazy? It's the same year they assassinate Kennedy. 1963 was a very psychic year, man. You could you could see it by 1964. Hippie culture was having its first run. Right? It was beginning to trend. The flowers were popping into the hair. People were getting all Eastern woozy-hoozy and stuff. Right? Somebody started listening to too much Alan Watts on LSD. But anyway, so we've been tripping for fucking so long that we've been defending the enemies of our own fucking values. And it's tarnished what it means to do things in the libertarian, non-interventionist way that you imagined when your experience of the 90s matures you when you're an adult into the 2000s. Right? And you're either paying attention to the change of time or not, especially when time gives you more information. Saturn is a patient god.
Unable to make a living on their allotted land, joined a rising tide of migration to the cities. Tehran's population swelled as hundreds of thousands sought factory jobs or low-wage work, only to find housing shortages and inflation waiting for them. Modernization also touched the lives of Iranian women. The White Revolution
when you hear about all of these grievances as if it was the Shah's fault of that economic policy, right? It's just like similar things were happening to other Western countries trying to apply these economic policies. But also it's a little bit hard because remember, there's still a peasant class. This is following suit like everything else in the 19th century, right? Where the second your nation starts industrializing as a kingdom or an empire, and your peasants start seeing the world change and them having to work in that world, but they are not the men of money making it happen, right? The resentment is being seeded because you're like, okay, the peasant's a little upset about how things are going. The peasant also is fucking illiterate and knows nothing of the outside world and what their king is trying to do for them. Because those people, like many people who would just eat their bread and watch their fucking circus, have peasanted themselves. And it's a really dangerous idea that they be involved in fucking politics, not understanding how anything fucking works. And so, the rapid growth was happening at such a rate that it was an opportunity within the divide and within the miseducation and with the sowing the seeds of the suspicions, right? Because I'd imagine there's a lot, just like here in America, there's no reason to do anything about a fundamentalist Christian. They're not fucking running around being a terrible problem. But if you're going to go live in a fundamentalist Christian place, they're going to harass you if you are trying to enjoy your pagan state of life, for instance, right? Because that's a microcosm of what you would fucking expect them to be if they ever fucking controlled all three branches of our tripartite federal system. And thankfully, you can have all these free associations, right? You know, like if you're lower class, the lower class is still not a, quote, peasant. I have the exact amount of base legal rights. There are certain rights I don't have to certain things because I'm not in those jurisdictions of court. And then there's other facts of life, just like who I know, what I'm capable of doing, the kind of deals that I've made, the kind of value I have to others, so on and so forth. Do I fit in the world that I fit in? Why did I lose my fucking job on Friday for like a non-fucking reason? Perhaps they'll tell me what it was when they give me my paycheck tomorrow. I don't know. It doesn't fucking matter to me. Maybe it's because they stumbled across my website even though I haven't given my name yet. I gave it to one guy after I was fired because now I'm like, fuck it, right? Who cares? Anyway, 1960 Fugen 3.
Women the right to vote in 1963 and expanded access to education. Female literacy climbed from 15% in 1960 to 57% by 1976.
Now, this isn't the first time we made the mistake of giving women the right to vote and then something bad happened because of it. We gave women the right to vote and we had alcohol prohibition in a very short period of fucking time. Men have to do better by their women. You always had to do better by your women. And we had to change things dramatically for certain arguments and certain answers, right? There's a lot to be fucking said by thinking about it, about like the allocation of power, right? Women think about it all the time because they don't want men to vote on women's issues. I mean, I'd be okay with maybe seeing how that works out. You make a men no say women's committee. You test it in like one state, right? But it goes vice versa. So there's certain things you can't medically impose on a guy either, and then he gets to go to town with everything he considers to be right. I'd actually go for that just on the merit that like I don't like to be vaccinated, and that'll be part of my preferences in my male voting block, right? Things like that. Anyway, so yeah, so that was the Shaw's biggest mistake right there. There's the Shaw's mistake, right? Because look at the hysterical women of wokeness that have asked for guys like Mayor Mamdani, that asked for vegetables like Joe Biden as a tool to get a whore like Harris in the White House. Allegedly.
Yet, for many, the promise of equality stopped at the school gates. Employment opportunities remained limited, and traditional norms still shaped daily life, especially in rural areas. While state propaganda celebrated gleaming new highways, television towers, and the arrival of Western consumer goods, the lived reality was more complicated. The benefits of oil-fueled growth flowed mainly to the urban elite and a narrow technocratic middle class. Meanwhile, millions of Iranians, peasants, workers, even some merchants, felt left behind or threatened by the pace of change. The Shah's vision of a great civilization produced not just modern apartments and new laws, but also a sense of exclusion. These contradictions, rising expectations, deepening inequality, and uneven social change laid the groundwork for a coalition of grievances that would soon unite groups from across Iran's social spectrum. Savak's surveillance stretched into every corner of Iranian life by the late 1970s. Amnesty International counted over 3,200 political prisoners in 1976, but the true number swelled much higher in the final years of the Shah's rule. Dissidents described midnight raids, forced confessions, and the constant threat of torture.
Now, all those claims, none of them ever were substantiated. The many, many, many arrests, well, those were all from riots, civil disturbances. It was all from, like, George Floyd type shit, right? It was all blown out of proportion. You got, you know, you've got attitudes about certain things, and all it simply was just the problems of the fucking poor and a miscalculations about how you raise the poor under the circumstances of the civilization that you're in, right? So an unfortunate cavalcade of problems, and then of course all of the misplaced suspicions and fears about things, right? So the people felt this way about Savak. They believed that this was true about Savak. That's the problem, is that they believed it was true, and the world believed it was true, right? Because they needed to paint him as Hitler. I mean, for fuck's sake, he was, you know, like everybody knows from his various whatevers, he's about, oh, see how he's a proud Aryan, right? You know, and so here, you know, that becomes a mark about, like, we should not trust white people with power, right? And that's why Ronald Reagan knew what was coming.
Yet, instead of silencing opposition, the crackdown forged unlikely alliances. Clerics who once denounced leftist ideas now shared safe houses with Marxist students. Bazaar merchants, threatened by secular reforms and economic uncertainty, began funding underground newspapers and strike funds that circulated from mosque courtyards to university dormitories. Nationalist liberals, long sidelined after the Mossadegh era, found common cause with religious leaders and pamphlets calling for an end to foreign influence and political repression. The coalition that took shape was unlike any in Iran's modern history. Religious scholars, labor organizers, secular intellectuals, and bazaar traders, groups with little history of cooperation, now met in secret to plan marches and distribute cassettes of Khomeini's sermons. Student collectives, emboldened by mass arrests on campus, joined with oil workers and shopkeepers to organize citywide strikes. Each wave of Savak arrests only widened the network, as former prisoners connected new recruits to clandestine cells.
Now, if you believe at this point that maybe the IRGC are bad people, understand that Savak is trying to protect the rest of the country from bad people they don't understand, because they got in before he could educate his peasants about life and the world.
By 1978, the opposition spanned social classes and political ideologies, from working-class neighborhoods in Tehran to the merchant guilds of Isfahan, from radical university clubs to the conservative clergy in Qom. Fear, once a tool of control, became a shared experience. It drove disparate groups to trust one another, at least long enough to challenge the
media that was turning against the Shah, part of a world that had certain globalist ideas or anti-Western ideas, also different things in the mix over there at that time versus what's in the mix in our world and other forces acted upon. But the fear is not coming from the Shah. The Shah is not running around like making like threats to anyone else other than people that aren't keeping the peace, because they're just compounding thing after thing. Like they're complaining about, you know, Khomeini's become very popular, so they think it's a horrible thing that he has been exiled, so on and so forth. Right?
The monarchy. The Shah's effort to isolate his critics instead produced a movement that was both broad and resilient, one capable of turning repression itself into the foundation for mass mobilization. By late 1978, Iran's economy was grinding to a halt. Oil workers in Abadan, Avaz, and Tehran walked off the job, cutting national crude output by nearly a third. Production numbers from the National Iranian Oil Company show a plunge from over 6 million barrels per day in 1977 to less than 5 million by December 1978. The southern refineries, once the engine of state revenue, slowed to a crawl. For the Shah, this was more than a financial crisis. It was the loss of his last tool for buying loyalty.
I promise you, like, there's the issue, like the Savak thing, making him look like a bad guy, and then on top of that, it's like, oh, well, why with the Savak? Well, you know, America and the Mossad, and, you know, they just want to fucking make all these fucking big international fucking corporations money and shit, and, you know, and the British and all that, right? Which, unfortunately, there was a lot of things that were true about that, right? Because of the globalist situation. Like, I'm not saying America did all the right things either, but I'm also saying that America had to do something, right? Just like we imagine what America has to do in our time now, right? And have we ever thought about if there's a credible claim that somebody has gotten one of our CIA guys or some nonsense like that? Which, you notice, seems to never happen, right? There's never like, oh, this country kidnapped the thing, says he's a CIA spy. Like, no, so like if we have CIA spies all over the place, then they're not, then they've never gotten fucking caught. That means they're fucking good, right? They're either good or they're just not doing anything fucking bold enough, right? And I have a couple of theories that amuse me about a transitional government situation in this war, but we'll talk about that later.
On February 1st, 1979, Ruhollah Khomeini returned to Tehran after 14 years in exile. Crowds surged through the capital, with estimates ranging from 2 to 3 million people. Police aerial counts put the number above 2 million, filling Al-Azadi Square and spilling into the surrounding streets. For many, this gathering was not just a protest, but a public transfer of allegiance. The monarchy's grip slipped further as the armed forces, along the regime's backbone, issued a statement of neutrality on February 11. Commanders ordered troops to stand down, refusing to fire on civilians or intervene in the political struggle.
Right.
With the military sidelined.
So I think, you know, that's the moment where, like, the military just knows that it's just like there's no power in the Shah's orders if he wants to do something about this, right? And it's a big part of why there's a difference between the military and the IRGC, but the military is basically going. It's basically all the same, I guess, at this point. But there's still a struggle with the people, and it has a lot to do with different levels of 12er Shiites, and not all the 12ers are IRGC types, right? You know, like, this is why the whole top leadership had its ideas for uniformity, as I understand it now, because Donald Trump has obliterated the entire top of the Ayatollahs and the IRGC's political and military leadership apparatuses, that between military coordination is in independent fractures, and political divides are now starting to come up as time is now moving forward, and people have to start making country leading decisions without a central leading voice. They have not produced this guy and they don't even know how to produce anything in his name. Right? And it's a question of how many people are going to turn it around and, realize maybe it's safe to go back to being rational people. Right?
The Shah's authority vanished almost overnight. Less than 2 months later, Iranians faced a stark question: monarchy or Islamic Republic? The referendum, held at the end of March, drew nearly 18 million votes. Official results reported a turnout of 96.9%, with more than 98% casting ballots for the new order. The numbers, certified by the Interior Ministry and observed by international monitors, provided the legal stamp for a revolution that had already played out in the streets.
And then the question is, who counted the numbers? Because the people who control your lives are the ones who count the vote.
A matter of weeks, the Pahlavi dynasty had given way to a system built on clerical rule, popular mobilization, and the memory of mass defiance. In December 1979, the new constitution of the Islamic Republic was ratified by popular referendum. At its core sat the doctrine of Velayat-e-Faqih, granting the supreme leader sweeping authority over the state's branches: executive, legislative, and judicial.
So they traded a dictator for a dictator by that merit, right? It's like, the Shah's a dictator. And then they vote for this Islamic Republic. And, well, go figure. It sounds like the peasants didn't understand what they signed up for, because there it is, right? And the only thing that changed internationally was their whole bit with oil, their whole religious allegiances, and the Israel threat situation. I mean, it's just, and people think that it's equivalent now, right? We got people that are just, it is what it is. We'll get there. We'll figure it out.
The assembly of experts, dominated by Khomeini's allies, shaped the charter to ensure clerical oversight at every level. Article 5 cemented the supreme leader's role not just as a figurehead, but as the ultimate arbiter of law, military command, and media. Alongside this, the Guardian Council was established. 12 jurists, half chosen by the supreme leader, with the power to vet all legislation and electoral candidates. This council would become the gatekeeper of political life, filtering out rivals and enforcing ideological conformity. Months before the Constitution's approval,
I believe that, the Supreme Council. The Supreme Council was also bombed with the Ayatollah, right? So it wasn't even that, the legacy of that has brought out the cardboard cutout that we know today.
Khomeini issued the founding decree for the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, in May 1979. The IRGC operated independently from the regular army, tasked with defending the revolution from internal and external threats. Its reach extended quickly, spawning the Basi, a mass mobilization force drawn from students, workers, and the urban poor. These new institutions pushed aside the coalition partners who had helped topple the Shah. Nationalists, leftists, and secular liberals found themselves sidelined by legal mechanisms and armed power.
Right there, right? They weren't trying to get rid of all that. They liked the liberalism coming in from 63. Like a vast majority of them. And the guys who didn't like it aren't letting the people that like it have it. Donald Trump can't stroke a pen and remove woke from Disney's agenda. You know, Kim Jong-un can do that in North Korea, though. You understand? And you only achieve this by nationalizing everything. These are, they're called Nazis because of their behavior. Now, but of course, like, you've got to understand also, National Zionists, like, there's a whole fucking thing about that, right? And I'm not scapegoating Israel, because there was a lot of people that were not National Zionists who were socialists also. Not everybody wants that political thing for Israel. Unfortunately, there are some that do, right? There's plenty of things I've heard with the Likud party. I know a thing or two about what some fucking important rabbis that back the Likud party have said, you know, and all this other stuff. And even if they can't get away with anything that they're saying, the fact that they're trying causes problems, right? And that's not good for Israel. And Israel deserves better than what their politics is giving them now also, right? And people, like, I don't want to see some sort of alien disclosure lie be the retarded thing that stops, like, the 12ers from fucking invoking the Mahdi, okay? Let's fucking do some work so we don't have to use fucking Hollywood nonsense to win wars based on lies.
As the revolution's promise of pluralism hardened into a system built for clerical dominance. In November 1979, student militants stormed the United States Embassy in Tehran, taking 52 Americans hostage. The standoff lasted 444 days, gripping the world and fueling a siege mentality inside Iran. The government seized the moment to silence dissent, casting opposition as betrayal. Former revolutionary allies soon faced the regime's wrath. In June 1981, security...
Like early-ass betrayals... Like, there's nothing defensible about this and these people, you know, these people lied to these people. You get it? It happened so fast, so immediately, right? And it divided the press because a lot of people in the press corps wanted to believe this guy because they're part of the same strings that put him in the power behind the scenes, fighting other strings behind other powers, right? Like, you know, the global chessboard or the globalists or the whatever, you know, it's just a level of fucking geopolitics that is overwhelming you and you think it's all one fucking thing. It's not one fucking thing. It's one thing in the sense that it all wants to eat you for fucking dinner, but it's another thing in the sense that you can navigate this shit with a lot of fucking wisdom. And there's a need for strength and many other things, and then we as people have to decide what we want to do about a thing or two. And if you got a non-aggression principle, what about you just see someone you like and someone's violating a non-aggression principle on them and they can't fucking take care of themselves? Do you just say, well, they're the weaker party, the evil, right? You know, because some people say, oh yeah, you gotta be, you know, the good is the strong or whatever, and they think you mean something awful by that, like you know, like that survival of the fittest fucking thing, which, no, but I'm just acknowledging that an aspect of nature is there, right? Because I'm not a horrible person that's going to watch somebody get beaten to death in front of me, right? And if I want to be involved in living on this planet, I'm going to see in the media stream the knowledge and awareness of where I see people getting beaten the shit out of all over the fucking place. And I either know enough about the situation to say something or not. And considering that a whole bunch of people don't know anything about this situation that they could know, it's time we all know more about this fucking situation, because I know that people got things wrong, whether I can fully explain it or not. But I just know that it's there, and that it's real, and that I believe it is a superior truth.
Security forces targeted the People's Mujahideen of Iran, known as MEK. Revolutionary courts announced over 1,000 death sentences in a single day. Mass executions and arrests followed, erasing the group's urban presence. War with Iraq broke out in September 1980, demanding total mobilization. Over 8 years, about 1 million Iranians died. The threat from outside justified expanding security forces.
So, within a year, he gets 1 million fucking people killed. Going to war with Iraq, I believe because Iraq was Saddam Hussein on our side at that time? Yeah, I think the deal was, like, Saddam Hussein was, like, on our side until, like, a couple of months or years before he took care of business in Kuwait. And there's things to be said about why he made the moves in Kuwait that he did and the setup to that. But also, I'm attempting to always tackle these things on their exoteric and occulted levels. So, let's keep going. We got a few more seconds on this vid.
And tightening control. Daily life changed too. In March 1981, Parliament made hijab mandatory for all women and girls older than 9.
2 years in.
Morality patrols enforced the law, issuing warnings, fines, and jail terms. Each crisis, the hostage standoff, the purge, the war, and the social regulation, cement.
I mean, like, you want to complain about chauvinistic men. It's just like, the left wants to complain about that. Well, you know, like, it's going to be chauvinistic men that are going to be fucking putting that on a woman. Right? So, you know, you're back in all this shit, right? And motherfuckers like Tucker Carlson ought to be fucking looking at this shit, because it's fine if he wants to be, like, on the anti-war kick about this. Can he at least fucking talk about the plight of the Iranians for real? Right? While we're gonna be here in this situation, and you are gonna stand on policies that are probably just gonna do more harm in the region than good. Because I think understanding, I think we can't just sit there and say every little thing going on in a country's world is absolutely none of our business if we're going to have any business having any friends at all. And but we really have to set things up to mitigate that, because yeah, the world has to be set up in a way that doesn't have retarded foreign entanglements and such, right? But then again, we also have to have the world set up in a way where there's more congruency between different nations that want to have different economic formats. Because unfortunately, there's a lot of the way we treat each other and the way we treat other nations that are directly correspondent to how that nation has its people make money for them. And so we then have all of our alliances along economic lines. And even spiritual lines are economic lines, because the spiritual is guiding what it means to work.
Clerical authority and ended the revolution's pluralism. Today, Iran's political and social divides trace directly to 1979. Each new protest, sanction, or negotiation unfolds in the shadow of that revolution. The struggle to define freedom and power in Iran remains unresolved. The world still feels every aftershock. Share your thoughts below.
Right. So I just shared my thoughts to your face. All right. Now, close that off. This one, right? Okay. I've got an article I'm going to read. Properties. Where are we here? 1 second. Where is it? Where is it? Come on, 46 years. 1 sec, I'm sorry. One more time. Should be fine. Oh yeah, I think it's this one. Hold on. Oh. All right, we'll do this one. It's not capturing it on screen. There we go. That'll do. Okay. So I'm using the Middle East dot observer. I don't know where the allegiances of these guys are, but it said some things that are very pertinent to the whole bit that we're now going to get into. 46 years of Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, threat to regional stability and global security. All right. On April 22nd of 79, in the aftermath of the Iranian Revolution, Ruhollah Khamenei established the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, fundamentally reshaping Iran's internal structure and its regional presence, created as a counterbalance to the traditional Iranian military and designed to safeguard the ideology of the newly installed regime. The IRGC has emerged over 46 years as the most dominant force within the Islamic Republic, central to the country's governance, economy, and foreign policy, while acting as the chief instrument for Iranian interference and terror across the Middle East. Foundation and ideological mission. The roots of the IRGC lie in the revolution's drive to entrench the authority of Iran's new theocracy. Suspicious of the Shah's former army, Khamenei insisted on a separate ideologically charged military body sworn to protect revolutionary values and eliminate opposition. This force quickly evolved from suppressing dissent into an expansive apparatus responsible for enforcing domestic order and asserting Iran's vision abroad. Expansion into a parallel state. Now, you wouldn't need a big army to protect your revolutionary values if you had been honest with the people about those values and stuck with it. But no, you imposed your 12erism on the entire fucking country, all because the state let you fucking get this whole fucking thing, right? Expansion into the parallel state. Today, the IRGC is estimated to command upwards of 150,000 members with influence extending across every facet of Iranian society. Beyond its renowned military branches, including the elite Quds Force, the IRGC wields authority over intelligence, internal security, and surveillance, guaranteeing the regime's survival against both foreign and domestic adversaries. So, this is ultra paranoia, right? They're all over the place, keeping people from saying, like, look, man, we don't want to live exactly like this, right? They might even say, oh, we like 65% of what the fucking IRGC does what the Ayatollah says. But it's that last percent where he wants me to live like a fucking 12er that I can't stand. One of the IRGC's most consequential expansions has been economic. Through vast networks of front companies, most notably the engineering and conglomerate Khatam al-Anbiya, the IRGC dominates sectors including construction, energy, telecommunication, and banking. And that's the IRGC, not the government. Analysts suggest the IRGC-controlled entities account for a significant portion of Iran's non-oil economy, allowing the Guard to sideline private competition and amass independent resources that reinforce their political power. Right. Okay, so... Give me 1 second. I want to... Let's punch this in real quick. Let's punch this in. All right. Let's see. Iran Watch, Grokpedia. I want to know how it stands today. Right, they're obviously under sanctions. What is their current... All right, I'm going to go to Wikipedia real quick. I want to see if the entity is still operational here. Founded 7 years ago. People. Okay. Probably down... Okay, there's not much here. European activities abroad. 2008. 2007. They've not updated the Wikipedia since the war started about the company itself. Because I have to imagine that the company's not doing well. If I mostly get my news from Golda Gamari and Armin, so if I haven't noticed them saying it, then I have no idea what's going on with it. And I haven't heard them mention this company, or I missed it if they did. All right, well, I'm going to assume that they're not doing too well. Anyway, agents of regional destabilization and proxy warfare. All right, perhaps the RGC's most defining role has been its sponsorship and direction of terrorism through the region. The Quds Force, the RGC External Operations Arm, provides training, weapons, and funding to terrorist proxies, including Hezbollah in Lebanon and Hamas in Gaza, the Houthis in Yemen, and various armed factions in Iraq and Syria. In Lebanon, the RGC is transformed Hezbollah into both political power broker and sophisticated terror army with an arsenal numbering upwards of 150,000 rockets, posing a constant threat to Israel's northern border. I feel like I may have read this a couple of weeks ago, but it's good to go over it again, and they do talk about MOIS in the article, which is why I'm reading it. In Gaza, Hamas is responsible for ongoing rocket attacks, and October 7th, 2023, a massacre of Israeli civilians remains heavily reliant on IRGC expertise, material support, and ideological inspiration. The IRGC also underwrites insurgent activity in Yemen, where the Houthis threaten shipping lanes and regional allies and direct Iraqi and Syrian militias in campaigns that have destabilized those states and targeted U.S. and Israeli interests. Collectively, these proxies form the backbone of what Tehran calls the axis of resistance, a network designed to encircle Israel, undermine Sunni Arab governments, and drive Western influence from the Middle East. And we talked about all of these 12er-based militant groups in Yemen and Syria and Jordan and all these different places, right? Particularly Jordan. because Jordan has a lot to do with Palestine. It's pretty much the key player in the region, in the Levant for Palestine. And what's up, Sherlock? All right. Impact on Israel and regional security. Since its inception, the IRGC has identified Israel as an existential adversary. The regime's repeated vows to destroy Israel are translated into reality through the arming and training of terror groups along Israel's borders. The October 7th massacre by Hamas, widely considered the deadliest anti-Semitic atrocity since the Holocaust, was, according to Israeli intelligence, made possible by years of IRGC funding, tactical guidance, and weapons transfers. And remember, just like I have a problem with certain people being bullied, also the left has problems with certain people being bullied, and Iran has a problem with certain people being bullied. And it's not that I don't have a certain problem with Palestinians being bullied, but also I've been covering the Palestine side of things too and looking at it, and honestly just like saying, wouldn't it just make more fucking sense to just let Israel just take all the fucking land and you live on that land with Israel as your fucking government, because there's other Palestinians, other Muslims, and if you're a fucking Christian, other Christians too, that are doing just fine, getting along just fine, and there's also atheists in Israel and all sorts of types of peoples, right? Because you guys gotta fucking admit you can't be a thing. And unfortunately, the 12ers' intents to act on their ideology on Israel makes the situation 10 times worse, because you can't isolate the problem between Israel and Palestine, because it gets compounded by the will of these 12er fucking groups. Anyway. Israel's current military campaigns in Gaza and defensive measures in the north are acts of self-defense against the Iranian-directed jihadist apparatus threatening its existence. IDF officials, under the leadership of Chief of Staff Lieutenant General Ayal Zamir, described the struggle against IRGC-linked forces as a defining challenge for Israeli national security. All right, so let me go. Where did I see where they were talking about MOIS in here? Right? Because an important point that the rest of this article is making is just everything about how this foreign policy changed, right? Because also you got to remember, it's this horrid thing now, the way Palestinians are getting fucked up. But it wasn't like this before, even though there was the hostile kind of standoffishness going on. It was not such a chaotic affair. Right? There hadn't been enough time for a bloody reputation to completely ensconce the Levant. So, all right. Why? I thought it had something. I thought they said something about the MOIS on here. Hold on a second. Because I'm pretty good with this article. If I'm not going to get the MOIS, it must be the other article that I'm looking at. And we got a helpful video coming up too. But where's the search button? I've forgotten where the search button is. Excuse me. I'm trying to do the search on the page, and zoom, print, find. There it is. No. Find. Okay, it wasn't on here. All right, that's fine. That's fine. All right, we are going to move then to... We're going to put this back on. I got to flip it back. Wait, where'd it go? Was it this? Whoops. All right, hang on. I'm misplacing stuff. That's it. We'll do this one first. Let me see if this will work now. Properties. All right. Hold on. It's my device is having problems recognizing the window that I'm trying to ask it to operate with. Come on. There we go. Now it's working. Excellent. All right. This is from Explained in 5 Minutes, Fair Use.
Complex and secretive systems in the world built through decades of revolution, war, and political change. Behind every major decision in Tehran lies a web of agencies working quietly to protect national security and the stability of the Islamic Republic. These organizations are not just about secrecy or espionage, they represent the strategic backbone of Iran's defense and internal control. The Shah's era and Savak. Modern Iranian intelligence began in the 1950s under Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi. In 1957, the Shah established Savak, the National Intelligence and Security Organization. Its purpose was to strengthen both internal and external security, counter espionage, and protect the monarchy. Savak was trained with help from foreign advisors and quickly became powerful within Iran's political system. For over 2 decades, Savak oversaw surveillance, counterintelligence, and national security. However, over time, it developed a controversial reputation for its tough methods of political control and suppression of opposition. By the late 1970s, rising public anger toward the Shah's government and growing protests made Savak a symbol of authoritarian rule. When the 1979 Islamic Revolution overthrew the monarchy, one of the new government's first actions was to dissolve Savak completely. The rise of MOIS. Iran's Ministry of Intelligence and Security. After the revolution, Iran briefly formed...
Look at this goddamn fucking symbol for this fucking thing. You've got the global iris within this wild teardroppy eye. This is dystopian as all fuck. It's got the cube symbolism. It ironically looks a little bit like the Seal of Solomon, right? I think I pointed this out. In a different place where I saw it in a prior episode, but it bears repeating, right? Yeah. So, you know, this is your police state right here, right? This is the all-seeing eye of their system, right? It's with the anglings as such, you probably can get a trapezoid out of that too.
Formed a transitional service called Savama to handle the duties once managed by Savak. A few years later, in 1983, this evolved into a new and more structured organization. The Ministry of Intelligence and Security, MOIS, known in Persian as Vezarati Etilad va Amniati Keshvar. MOIS became the central intelligence agency of the Islamic Republic. Its official mission is to protect the country from foreign espionage, internal sabotage, and national security threats. It also manages counterintelligence, cyber operations, and foreign intelligence gathering. The ministry works through various departments focusing on domestic security, foreign affairs, counterespionage, and covert operations. MOIS is often viewed as the civilian face of Iran's intelligence world. It recruits agents, operates surveillance systems, monitors political groups, and manages data analysis. Internationally, it is considered one of the Middle East's most experienced intelligence bodies. However, in Iran, its activities remain largely confidential. The IRGC intelligence organization.
We're talking about equivalencies to the brown shirts, okay? This is functionally what they are.
While MOIS functions under Iran's civilian government, the country also developed a powerful parallel intelligence structure. The Intelligence Organization of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps IRGC. This agency, often called the IRGC Intelligence Organization IORGC, emerged in the early 2000s and was formally established around 2009.
Now, here's a good question. Why does their symbol use the Roman wreath circlet? Why are they using this symbolism? What's the common thread with the Iranian world and that, right?
The IRGC's intelligence wing reports directly to Iran's supreme leader, giving it significant autonomy and influence. Its main purpose is to provide intelligence support to Iran's military operations, particularly those involving the IRGC and its external arm, the Quds Force. IRGC intelligence officers collect battlefield data, track security threats, and coordinate with regional allies. They also monitor potential internal challenges to the political system. Compared to MOIS, the IRGC intelligence organization operates with a more military and ideological approach. Artesh Intelligence. The regular military's intelligence branch. J2. Beyond these main agencies, Iran's regular army, known as the Artesh, maintains its own intelligence division, often referred to as J2. The Artesh intelligence branch focuses primarily on military and defense-related intelligence. Its role is to provide strategic information for battlefield planning, border security, and defense operations involving the Army's land, air, and naval forces. Unlike the IRGC, the Artesh operates as a conventional military institution. Its intelligence officers gather information from reconnaissance missions, satellite imagery, and communications monitoring. They also coordinate with MOIS and the IRGC during conflicts or border operations. Though less visible to the public, Artesh intelligence is vital for Iran's traditional military readiness. Police intelligence and domestic security units. Within Iran's law enforcement system, intelligence work is carried out by PAVA, the Public Security Police. This division is part of Iran's national police force and is responsible for maintaining public order, monitoring social activity.
So you see, the MOIS gets their intel, and then they feed that to PAVA, and then these are the boot-kicking thugs. These are the motherfuckers that do the executions, the whole thingamajig. Or at least they're the point of the beginning of that process. These are the dogs that come after you.
Activities, and addressing internal security concerns. PAVA's role includes preventing organized crime, managing protests, and ensuring compliance with social and economic regulations. It works closely with MOIS and other agencies through an official intelligence coordination.
And meaning those are the guys that force you to wear the burqa. People really act like they just lie to themselves, right? Like, not every fucking Muslim is a 12er. Just like not every fucking Christian is a fucking, Baptist minister.
In Council. In 2022, Iran's police command underwent restructuring, creating a new intelligence unit known as SAFA, the Police Intelligence Organization. SAFA centralizes intelligence gathering for border control, cybercrime, and criminal investigations. It represents a modernization effort to integrate policing and intelligence more effectively. While still relatively new, SAFA's influence in domestic operations is growing steadily. AGB-2 nuclear and counter-espionage security. One of the most secretive elements of Iran's intelligence structure is AGB-2, a specialized counter-espionage agency. Its primary mission is to protect Iran's nuclear and strategic facilities from foreign intelligence threats and sabotage. AGB-2's officers monitor sensitive installations, screen employees, and safeguard against infiltration. They also coordinate cyber and physical protection efforts for high-security research sites.
So, like, by the way, right, like, the PAVA and the MOIS are the ones that I'm most concerned about here, because those are the guys that are proactively... Granted, all of this shit is under MOIS, right? But it's PAVA and the specific dudes doing all of the spy craft to send PAVA after you in the internal apparatus.
Coordination and overlap between agencies. Iran's intelligence community consists of many organizations, each with its own jurisdiction. To manage overlap, Iran established an Intelligence Coordination Council, ICC. On paper, MOIS leads this council and is responsible for ensuring cooperation among roughly a dozen active agencies. In practice, however, competition remains, especially between MOIS and the IR.
And by the way, understand something. All this kind of shit here, like, Iran probably spends way more time sophisticating their military than they do sophisticating their economy.
GC intelligence organization. Both have extensive networks, strong leadership, and close ties to political authorities, which can lead to overlapping missions and differing priorities. From the Shah's Savak in the 1950s to today's multi-layered system of MOIS, IRGC intelligence, Artesh intelligence, PAVA, SAFA, and AGB-2, Iran's intelligence framework has evolved dramatically. It now forms a vast network designed to safeguard the state, monitor threats, and project influence abroad. Though much of their work happens out of public view, these organizations shape Iran's political, military, and diplomatic decisions. Together, they reveal how intelligence has become one of the most powerful and least understood pillars of Iran's national system. Thanks for watching. If you found...
I mean, that's just obvious if you understand that you don't have an authentic democracy or an authentic republic, right? Granted, a democracy turns into that. I mean, you want to talk about a mandate from heaven? Remember, fucking 98% in 79. The women, the men who loved the women. And that's what the women and the men who loved the women did, because they didn't know the future that someone was trying to offer them. They didn't understand the future they could have kept. They didn't understand the offer for the future that was given to them. And we're supposed to act like complete tough titty, right? And, they've they put a bunch of hardcore stuff in the first decade, and then it's been slow rolling the crush ever since, right? And that's why it matters, because it keeps getting worse from all the things that we showed were established. All right. So that was a good short one. So this article that I'm now going to switch us over to, this article might have been the one that actually mentions MOIS. So hang on. All right. How Iran's... Is that this one? No. No. Hang on. It's supposed to be in this one. It still wants to give me freaking problems. Come on. There. Yes. Excellent. Okay. This article should be a little bit better. All right. Let me move that there. Good. How Iran's clerical regime rebuilt Savak into a global repression machine. This was 7th of February of last year. Mohammad Sadat Khansari. Mohammad Reshari, the first minister of intelligence of Iranian regime, sits in front of a blackboard displaying a chart outlining the ministry's targets. All right. And so if somebody can read Farsi, I believe you call that Farsi. I know you speak Farsi. Anyway, if anybody on the Farsi spectrum wanna tell me a thing or two about these targets, right? So anyway, 4-minute read. The fall of the Shah in 79 was widely seen as the end of Savak, Iran's dreaded secret police. However, rather than dismantling this notorious organization, and they were only dreaded because there was a determination that just being the revolutionary in a violently radical manner was going to get you arrested because you're doing a criminal type of thing. Right? It was mostly like that. Things probably got out of hand, but, you know, if violence is escalating, you're going to do violent things in response. Escalation is escalation, right? The protesters protesting ICE didn't want to understand this. They wanted to look bad for the camera at their own expense. Anyway, the clerical dictatorship absorbed its core structure and expertise, turning it into one of the most feared intelligence services in the world. This is all about how one feels about your particular relationship with Israel and such, right? And everybody's talking about it in America. And we need to have a reevaluation, and we need to have a strong reevaluation of that. And we have to do that from a position of, well, we still have certain facts about Israel, and all we're asking is that the other side of our people acknowledge that we kind of have an argument about how awful this whole situation is, and that Israel's doing awful things, and how are we fucking not saying any of that's a goddamn fucking war crime, and we don't have to. And it's just like, I feel like people are fucking really trying, and we just got, until people can fucking accept that we have to address certain global players, we're gonna have to deal with some ugly stuff. And it's, you know, it's too complicated for there not to be good guys and bad guys. It's too complicated for you to sit there and say, well, the most right and righteous way for me to do is from an anarchist's perspective, so that way I'm not connected to any of the blood of it at all. You know, because of all the liars and everything else, and people need help, and they will forgive you if you're doing something that at that time it's okay. We'll learn if it was a mistake, but this, I think, would be the right thing to do, kind of thing, right? So, for those who care to go to war, this is my point. Official Iranian sources, along with historical investigations, reveal that Savak's anti-espionage and foreign intelligence units were repurposed to serve the new regime. This report examines how Iran's ruling clerics leveraged former Savak operatives to create a surveillance state that continues to target dissent at home and abroad. You know, so the same people that said, you know, fuck Savak to the people, then, like, bribed Savak to work for them. The Iranian state, so this is their absorption into the clerical dictatorship. Iranian state television aired a revealing segment on February 2nd, 2025, in which Imam Gudarzi, a documentary filmmaker, stated Savak had 11 divisions. Only one was dismantled after the revolution. Get it? That's your bombshell. The only thing they did was take out the most front-facing aspect that got all the bad press. That's all they fucking did, and then they renamed it MOIS. That's all they fucking did. And they replaced the bad element with the Pava. The rest remained intact and pledged allegiance to Imam Khomeini before the fall of the Shah. This claim corroborates multiple sources, suggesting that the clerical dictatorship did not purge Savak, but instead repurposed its foreign intelligence, counterintelligence, and technical surveillance units. In an interview published by Danya-e-Iqtisad on March 6, 2023, a former high-ranking Savak counterintelligence officer revealed the revolutionaries approach us and ask for our expertise. They want to know how to maintain national security without relying on Western intelligence. The counterintelligence unit, once focused on Soviet spies, was restructured to handle domestic enemies under the new order. The current MOIS was built on the backbone of the Shah's brutal Savak. Former high-ranking Savak officials were the first to fill the ranks of the infamous Iranian military of intelligence, which has carried out countless terror attacks across the world. Now, what I would say here is, right, because this also is the double entendre of basically saying, well, yes, the Savak was brutal, and then they are also the same brutal of the MOIS. So at least it's the brutality MOIS we're talking about, right? It's entirely possible that towards the end of the revolution, because loyalties had fractured, that many of these Savak guys maybe went out of control, right? They may have gotten very, very fearful and made some mistakes in the end. Maybe did things that perhaps the Shah wouldn't have approved of, but it's towards the end. The loyalties are fracturing. Somebody is desperate. He doesn't know who within the Savak he can trust, who is betraying the Shah. Doesn't matter anymore. It's all for loss, right? You know, this is what goes on with revolutions and shit, right? So let's continue. Savak to Savama. The now brutal Ministry of Intelligence, formerly Savama, was built on the foundation of Savak, according to U.S. sources. It was first run by General Hossein Fardoust, who was deputy chief of Savak under the former Shah, and friend from a boyhood of the monarch. The MOIS is currently crucial in operating, targeting both dissidents internally and externally, and uses the most brutal tactics to achieve its goals. Similarly, in a report to ISNA on October 3rd of 2019, early Ministry of Intelligence members admitted to recruiting Savak personnel. Many of us knew that without a centralized intelligence system, the revolution would collapse under external threats. So we reached out to former Savak operatives, particularly from the anti-espionage unit. So you see my point? So, like, these guys, they probably just wanted a fucking job. They're probably nationalists. They were because they would have been nationalists under the fucking Shah. So, like, this is definitely not like I'm fine with you being fucking nationalists. That's not my contention. Venezuela can be its own nation. Cuba can be its own nation. Everybody can be their own fucking nation, man. It's cool. It's all right. It's chill. Anyway, a former MOIS official, Saeed Hajarian, said in 2019, we initially functioned as multiple competing intelligence units. It was only after 84, of course it was only after fucking 1984, That MOIS became the dominant force, absorbing Savak's best assets. Oh, that's fucking funny. The dark irony of it all. The satanic mockery of it all. Iran, I'm so fucking sorry. I'm so fucking sorry. Despite MOIS's dominance, Iran's intelligence operations remain fragmented. Former Iranian Minister of Intelligence Mohammad Reshari, 93, noted many intelligence functions were still controlled by IRGC intelligence, making it difficult to create a unified strategy. The fragmentation continues to allow different factions within the Iranian regime to use intelligence services for political purges and factional disputes. The world turns a blind eye to all this because they're desperate to see a socialist system work. The clerical dictatorship's intelligence services retained and refined the brutal interrogation and torture methods originally pioneered by Savak. So, I'm going to say no to that. I'm going to say that things... I'm going to say that Savak degenerated into that because the Shah was losing control. And the Savak was probably covertly beginning to betray him, may have intentionally butchered a few people, maybe, outside of the power of the Shah or something, or just a certain kind of bad press, right? This continuity was exemplified by figures like Javed Azadeh, a professional interrogator whose reputation for cruelty spanned both the Shah and the Islamic Republic's security apparatus. During the Ahmadinejad era, Azadeh resurfaced in Iran's intelligence circles, applying his expertise in extracting forced confessions. As an Italian report noted in 2009, his methods left no room for failure. The 2009, look, it's not a secret. It's not a secret that Iran is like this. Right? So, okay. Javed Azadeh. Let's look up Javed Azadeh real quick. Let's take a peek at this guy. Right. Yeah, okay, so that's the guy in the picture. I think. Right? Or is it saying that's another one? Wait. No, that's not the name I punched in, though. All right. This website's very similar to this website. So it throws me off. Like, feels like it's related. Seeing the same picture throws me off. I'm trying to follow... Okay. Find... There we go. The brutality associated with Savak did not disappear, but was instead refined under the new regime. Notorious figures like Javed Azadeh, who gained infamy under the Shah, resurfaced in Iran's intelligence circles, applying his interrogation techniques to silence dissenters. So one way or the other, right? It's just like, why would this guy do it for the Shah and then do it for the IRGC? Right? Because it's a fact that it's being done for the IRGC. And so, if it's about methods, it depends on who he's going after, right? Because the idea is that maybe these were some really bad dudes. Reports indicate that his methods remained unchanged, ensuring forced confessions through relentless psychological and physical coercion. Right. As it's been allegedly understood. It's either that or this guy is a fall guy and they forced him to stay on the job. He never did those things, but he was blamed for doing those things, was forced to play the part, and forced to take the role to be the new fear apparatus as they were going through the various betrayals. America lost the plot, not understanding the betrayals. We've acted like they wanted all of the fucking changes. This was not, they wanted American intelligence agencies not influencing their king. Or, well, they didn't want that influencing what the government was, and they couldn't, and they felt betrayed by the king under what they believed our relationship with them was. They got hardcore tricked into uprooting their system. They barely understood it. Because your rising underclass got absorbed into the social stratum of things before they had a full understanding of how their new society works and everything else. Whether you're a fucking sovereign or not, you still have a responsibility to get the word out and lay it out to the people in a way that operates. Your benevolence is based on the informed consent of your people being demonstrated, right? If J.R.R. Tolkien had written Aragorn by the end of Return of the King to do things a certain way, they would have been rejected by the people because there would have not been informed consent, right? Saruman had to be taken out of Middle-earth. So that way he wasn't poisoning relationships between the Jarldoms, if you will, the lesser little kingdoms in what is a greater Gondorian empire. And you have to have a deep understanding of all the different people all over the place. The Ayatollah doesn't care about the people that aren't from the Islamic Shiite aspect of anything else. Probably a lot of Shiites that are not 12ers tolerated it for a long time. They probably didn't believe it was being forced so badly because of where they come from in their beliefs, like just the same way it is with a lot of ignorant people over here. Anyway. Notorious figures like Javid Azeda is right. So, infamy under the Shah resurfaced. So, reports indicate that his methods remained unchanged. Yes, okay. So, for more than 4 decades, blackmail the nation's considered. Targeting dissidents abroad. Iran's intelligence services have continued Savak's tradition of international operations, using assassinations and abductions to eliminate opposition figures. Now, if the Democrats have secret ties to the legacy of Savak, remember the revolution happened under Jimmy Carter. With plenty of Gerald Ford's fuck-ups setting things up. And maybe if we never lost Nixon, the Shah would still be here today. Anyway. So, early examples include the 1979 arrest of PMOI member Mohammed Reza Sadati, orchestrated by ex-Savak operatives. By the 1990s, Iranian intelligence was implicated in assassinations across Europe and the United States and the Middle East. So, you see how, like, why not, right? And if they're doing it on a budget, which they are because they aren't a wealthy nation anymore, then they're going to put someone up to it, and then you're going to have people bum rushing the White House lawn. Right? So America may have some lax issues, and some foreign agent is out here whispering in people's ears, trying to get people to kill the president. Right? We're playing a game of pin the mistletoe on the boulder. That's what we're fucking doing here. Loki's playing his little fucking arrow game. Or at least that narrative works for the president. Because as long as he's at war with them, it could be a low-key threat, like that perhaps he doesn't want to let people think that an Iranian assassin is a thing, or maybe he just knows it would be laughed at, so he says nothing until the public starts to say, are the Iranians trying to assassinate Trump for real? Is it not just crazy lefties, but just an Iranian using a crazy lefty? Anyway. It is extremely rare for a diplomat to personally provide explosives to an operation team. Assadoullah Assadi, his name's Ass, gave bomb to terrorist. This clearly is the conduct of a regime which sees no future for itself and is on verge of collapse. All right, so through the ideological justification for repression has shifted from defending the monarchy to preserving a fundamentalist state, the methods remain the same. Iran's intelligence apparatus, fortified by former Savak operatives, remain one of the most feared in the world. As former MOIS official Saeed Hajarian stated, "We did not replace Savak, we repurposed it." So yeah, so there you go. That article right there, the prior video that I just showed you, that's all condemning information for you. That puts things right in perspective. Here is let's see. Wait a minute. Close that. Open it again. Where is this video? I got a video. I'm trying to jump back to the video screen. I got something for you. Maybe I open this. What happens when I do that? All right, try that. Hold on a second. I wish my show was slightly better better prepared for you today. Anyway. It's not throwing it on. Oh my god. Bear with me. Oh, that's because it's still... There we go. This one. it's not. I might have to jump to a break real quick just because this is annoying me. It's not even a long clip. There it is. There we go. That's what I wanted. All right, this is just 3.5 minutes of just the Ayatollah just before he becomes, you know, the dollar general Muad'Dib.
Ayatollah Khomeini, you seem to have had some success, you and your followers, in changing the government in Tehran. Do you have any feeling for how long it may be before there is an Islamic State in Iran?
It is very close. Very soon we will announce a new government.
Are we talking about days, weeks?
Probably few days.
From CBS News, Pontchartrain, France. A spontaneous and unrehearsed news interview on Face the Nation with Ayatollah Khomeini, Iranian religious leader and also political opposition leader to the Shah of Iran. His remarks will be translated by his associate, Dr. Ibrahim Yazdi.
Now, just remember, why doesn't the press talk to them anymore? The press continues to defend Iran, but they don't talk to these Islamic State leaders, and they can't, right? The orders by the press, they're not allowed to just talk to the Islamic State. But those are not American orders. Like, if America wants to, like, you know, if the Islamic State wants to come out and talk to the press, they can. Or at least they could for many, many, many years up until this war. Right? Now it's kind of like a bad move if they come out. They could get fucking arrested by somebody who goes with their press corps. That kind of thing. So, if your opinions are coming from everybody's understanding of the world, then you have to understand that you don't have a sufficient argument to deal with the problems of the world the press is lying to you about. That's why you need to listen to more people like me. Please like, share, subscribe.
You have spoken out against Israel. Now, what would happen if there were another war in the Middle East? Would you put Iran's army, one of the greatest in the world, into action against Israel?
We are against Israel, and we will never help Israel. We will cut off our diplomatic relation. However, sending our army against Israel in any future probable war needs a thorough study, and at this time, I do not have anything to say on that.
You see? See, he's lying to the press right there. It's just like, I'm going to be death to America in 5 minutes, and you don't even know it. Like, he's just, you know, you can tell he can't wait. He can't wait to walk in to fucking Iran, be surrounded by a bunch of fucking orcs, and start, you know, yelling from his high tower, right? He's not, you know, he's not letting the world know. No. Actually, it's going to be death to Israel, death to America.
Explore a little bit possible future relations with the United States. The Ayatollah has made some remarks about American bases interfering with Iranian independence.
This is also when you think about, like, think about Game of Thrones, right? Game of Durka, as they talk about it in the revolution, the counter-revolution, the Shah movement. But anyway, think about how we know because I didn't read the book either, but in the movie, it's like you had the way the world worked before the poverty pope came in to the kingdom, right? And the other guy was more of like of the lavish, and then they had the guy come in who was much more downplay, and that also happened. It was pantomimed in our world with the pope that was just in before this one, both ideologically and appearance-wise to play the part, to the point where some people think that the actor was playing the pope, and that was that actor. But anyway, so the Shah has, you know, he's like sitting in different kinds of chairs and everything else, and you know, sometimes he's doing things from a throne and everything looks lavish as all hell, and that whole game, right? But here it's just like, look at me, I'm a humble bum sitting on a rug. Come, sit down with me. Look, you want me to tell you about the Box Saga? I can strip naked for you and talk about Eeyore all day. Like, no, they're not going to talk about the Box Saga, but they're all sitting on the floor like it's fucking kindergarten, right? You know, these men of the press are capitulating to this Islamic thing, you know, as is. I bet that was like a prerequisite. It's just like, no, we're all going to sit on the floor, right? Not that sitting on the floor has to be the fucking whatever of the whatever, right? But also it's a big difference between I'm a religious authority that is above government, but all government has to listen to. But I am not of the government. To being like the emperor, where like I am the top of the government, right?
He has said that among those who violate human rights, there's no doubt that in the present age this is Carter, referring, I take it, to the president. And I just would like to understand whether he expects friendly or chilly relations with the United States.
If the United States government sees the continuation of the policy that they have had and do not support the Shah, which has committed so much crime and treason to the country and has appointed the illegal government, which the American government is supporting it. So if they seize that one and they start to have better relation with us and have friendly relation with us.
Now here's the thing, the government was not illegal. He's installing the illegal government because he's putting in this whole system that is in between the people's democratic process in this republic and the government that is this new infrastructure that replaces the order of how things operated in the palace and all this shit, right? You know, it's the same thing like with Nazis. Like the Nazis were an illegal government. Why? Because they changed the flag, because they changed the whole fucking structure of the thing. You know, they wrote a new constitution, the whole 9 yards. Right? When you do those things and you reorganize the civic process, right? And granted, that's only illegal if you don't make that part of your platform policy, right? And we've talked about how the Islamic Republic has done a bazillion things that had nothing to do with everything, right? This is the last fucking mask that he would wear, right? This is him, like he's got a nice perfect mask on right now, and he's expecting you to believe that he's just going to be a contentiously neutral person.
Then, according to our Islamic teaching, there is no reason for us to be in animosity with them.
What is your own role in this government that is to come?
I would not have any position in the future government as such, being the president or a prime minister. And my job is not to be as such. I will be some sort of supervising their activities. I will give them guidance. And if I see some deviation or some mistake, I will remind them how to correct it, give the general guidance.
You would be, in effect, the strong man of Iran.
به این ترتیب شما مرد قوی ایران خواهید بود.
اینطور فرض کنید.
You may assume so.
You may assume so. So and so here he is proudly saying, yeah, I'm gonna be the fucking mob boss of this whole fucking thing. Right? That's the way, like, when you demonize a king, you call him a mob boss. Now here he is, this guy's just a mob boss. Right? It's the mob. Trump is breaking up a mob by doing this. You get it? So that's what it is. And we have to ask ourselves, what exactly in this Zionist deal that we don't like, What particular thing is it where we have to be, oh my God, because I heard about this conspiracy, I better make sure I don't do X, Y, and Z things and forget the way the rest of the world fucking works. I just care about the fact that I don't trust Israel. Well, that's fine. I don't trust Turkey. I don't trust Ukraine. I don't trust Russia. I don't trust China. I don't trust Canada. Don't trust England. I might be able to trust, like, Bolivia. Maybe I can trust, I don't know, Ecuador, Botswana. I think I can trust Japan. I think there's countries I can trust. I think there's countries I can't trust. Thinking from an American. Thinking of, what do I mean by trust? It means that if my country is doing evil, then I trust that Japan may have a spy in our country to protect itself from things my country wants to do that I don't know about, that are unfair because of a misunderstanding of what Japan is doing in its secret doings that it has to keep secret because they don't want China to know what they're doing. So on and so forth. Which is why we have secret polices in our nations. And why we have to be very civically minded, part of the conversation, and talking about how we want it to work. And best to never pretend that it doesn't work that way, right? It's just like, I don't pretend that my secret police of my country hasn't done brutal things. But I don't have a king, and I'm not going to give my elected officials that benefit of the doubt. There's a bigger difference with the consistency and continuity of a sovereign. Even if he's a quote-appointed sovereign. Per se, right? And look, I think fending off, needing to make these decisions to fend off communism when you're mostly just dealing with the head of the state because you've got a largely peasant populace already. You're not there yet with an active populace. You can't just give people democracy. Anybody doing that is just exploiting people that haven't learned anything yet. You're trying to get them to learn things first. And we're just talking about under a current system. And right now we're well past the point of needing to ultra modernize every fucking nation. Right now we just got stability of everybody's got nations, except for a handful of places that are much more like territories, like Palestine. And then you can basically have everywhere have a national border of some sort if it's got a people that are coherent enough to do something with the allotted land to live and develop in and to be trusted defending itself. And I am sorry that we don't always in America act in honor. But unfortunately, that comes with how the Republic works, especially if you're doing things under a bipolarism, under the political bipartisanism, right? And probably that is also a grievance that the Ayatollah shares, because that's why he's this supreme leader guy. You get a couple of dudes you can vote for, but him as Mr. Strong Arm of the country, it's just like he's got to approve of you, right? The people don't get a choice other than the choice of the Ayatollah. This has been understood for fucking ever. None of this is a fucking secret. And it inherently is a statement of not letting the people have what they want. Because you've rationalized, oh, what the people wanted was to install a lousy son of a bitch who only cares about his religion instead of a guy who's got a bloodline tie who treats you more like a family, which is the best of case scenarios with a monarchy, with a dynasty. And he has enough of those kinds of ties and diplomatic ability. People just didn't like the fact that he didn't do things the way economically that what was it, the bazaar merchants, or whatever that economic class that was part of this revolution that you were just looking at. You get it? That's a fucking ugly ass shame. And the only thing you care about is the Epstein file angle. Like, all of reality hinges on your assumptions about what it all means. You just woke up yesterday. I woke up when we invaded Iraq. And I was primed for it well before 9/11. Anyway, I will see you guys later, and hopefully I got some more good stuff on this subject coming down the pipe. But I'll catch you on the flip side.